Hi everybody, and this is Burke Lyle today, and I am recording. It is February 12th of 2020, and this week in baseball. As today will be a baseball day for me on the air. Pitchers and catchers are getting ready to report right now in Florida, and as you can see, I'm wearing a baseball theme hat. World Series champion Washington Nationals. And I watched the Nationals World Series DVD about a week ago. It is very good. I highly recommend watching it if you're a Nationals fan or really any baseball fan. I recommend watching both. And just in the terms of the sports world right now, I mean, in last week alone, you heard about the Houston Rockets. Obviously, the Chiefs are about 10 days away, or 10 days removed from winning a Super Bowl. And then you heard about the blockbuster trade of Mookie Betts and David Price going to the Dodgers. And now pitchers and catchers are reporting, which that is exciting. The NBA All-Star break is about to start. So kind of this weekend and early next week is kind of one of the slowest sports really periods of the year. If you're a major sports fan, especially of pro sports, since yes, there are some NHL games, but again, what am I going to do next week? Since again, but the good news is baseball season is almost here, so I'm just going to try to enjoy the Nationals a little while longer for probably the next 6 weeks, and then it'll be time to play real baseball again. You know, now 29 other teams will be trying to take the World Series away from the Nationals. So that's kind of a good introduction, kind of what's going on. So this broke about a little less than 48 hours ago, which I was intrigued by this. So this was reported by Joel Sherman of the New York Post. The MLB is thinking about expanding their playoffs starting in 2022. And the reason why it's 2022 is at their 2021, which is just 2 short years away, the MLB CBA will expire, which means that obviously television deals will start to expire. I think ESPN and Turner, their rights expire, which means this new playoff format so-called starting. So, this is how it works. These are the basics. So the league will expand from 5 teams from what we have right now. So 5 in each league. Obviously, you have the 3 division winners and then the 2 wild card teams. A wild card team with a better record hosts the game, and so it's basically 4 versus 5. That's the way it's been for the last 8 years, starting in 2012, which 2012 was also right after when a previous CBA expired. So now, and this is what the league is doing. The league, and it's an odd number of playoff teams, which I can't ever think of a league that had an odd number of playoff teams. Obviously, the NFL, it is 6 per league, 12. NHL, 8 per league, 16. NBA, 8 per conference, 16, right? The MLB, you're going from 5 teams in the league per 7, which, again, when I look at the MLB season all the time, again, going back, go back to the history of baseball for the longest time, from about the turn of the century all the way until 50 years ago. It was, you won the American League, you won the National League. They play in the World Series. Oh, you won 95 games, so you're 10 games out. Oh, sorry, you missed the playoffs. And that's the way it is, which is a big reason why there have been such long championship droughts going back to that era. And then in '69 they expanded. Okay, 2 divisions per league. They will play each other in the league championship series. So you had 4 teams in the playoffs, but the league was just bigger and bigger. So it was an uncompetitive league. If you weren't really good that year, you're going to miss the playoffs. Which again, I don't like that type of system. I don't like small playoffs. See college football playoff. I could talk for hours about that. But then you expand into the '90s to 4 teams per league, 3 divisions, the division winners and the wild card. That they did that for about a total of 17 seasons, and that was too small. And now there's the current wild card. Again, every system's better than the previous system, but still, I think there's room for expansion. And what I would have done is I thought 6 might have been good. NFL style format where you have the top 2 division winners, and then you have 3 wild cards. You have a division winner playing a wild card, and then obviously wild card versus wild card right there. But it's 7 per league, so it's an odd number of teams that you have in your league playing each other, which means, sure, 14 total. Now that I think about it, 5 is a pretty, per league is an odd number, but they've made it work, obviously. So 14 teams in total, right? So a number is always going to be, in total, like 14's an even number, obviously, but 7 teams per league. So how's this going to work? So the team in each league with the best record gets a first round bye, and then the team with the second best record. So you won your division, but you won 98 games. Other team won 101. Oh, you picked. So now it's going to be like March Madness. There's going to be a selection show, and if you have the second best record or the third best record in your league, you win the division. You get to pick who you play in the wild card round, which again, there are 4 wild cards. So you pick your teams. That's what the process is going to be. And I was reading The Athletic, and also I was reading Tom Verducci from Sports Illustrated. Both of them provide outstanding data. And again, when the news broke a couple days ago, I couldn't help but look back at the standings. Both of them went since 2012, since they had the wild card. And you could go back even further to in the 90s when this all started, kind of the divisional round format, where you look at, okay, what would have happened? And I could go on in detail about this, but just it's kind of interesting looking back and thinking what would have happened. Would have these teams that would have otherwise missed the playoffs found a way to win the World Series or whatever? Is that the... Who knows? So, again, let's use last year as an example. So let's go National League first. So the Dodgers had the best record, far and away, 106. But then the Braves had the second best record. They won 97. The Cardinals won 90 by winning the National League Central. So the wild cards were obviously the Nationals and Brewers. They played each other. But then, more towards the bottom of the list, you had teams like the Mets and Diamondbacks who otherwise would have gotten in. So the Dodgers, they get to play at home, right? So now you have the Braves picking. They don't want to play the Nationals. There's no way they'd want to play the Nationals in the first round. They're not picking them. Would they pick the Brewers? Would they pick the D-backs? Would they pick the Mets? I don't know. Would they pick the lowest seed? You know, the team that I would have picked would probably have been the Brewers in terms of starting pitching. I mean, and 3 straight days, like the Brewers are playing 3 straight days. And we've seen this, we saw this last year with the Brewers playing back-to-back days. With the way they were set up in last year's playoff, sure, I would pick them. Since, are they going to do what they did against the Nationals 3 days in a row? That style of play that they used? No, that's not going to work. So the Braves probably picked the Brewers. So now you have the discussion. Oh, you're now the Cardinals. Do you want to play the Mets with, do you want to face Jacob deGrom? No, thank you. Would you like to face Noah Syndergaard? Oh, you know what? I think they'll just play the D-backs, which obviously, if the D-backs would have been in that position, I don't think Greinke would have been traded. So again, teams that were otherwise out of the playoffs might not have made those type of trades. So assume the Cardinals pick the D-backs. So it's Nationals-Mets, which that could have been a very fascinating series. But I don't know what's going to happen. So see, and then just quickly run through the American League. Obviously, the Astros won 107, so they have their first round bye. But now the Yankees with 103. Again, are they going to pick the original wild card game was Rays, A's, and then you had the Indians who won 93 games and missed the playoffs, which when that may be the last time a team that has won 93 games will ever miss the playoffs, especially if they do the expansion. So then now you have the Red Sox who won 84 games, right? Who are well behind the Indians. So obviously their shot at repeating would obviously they'd have an opportunity to repeat, right? So the Yankees, they probably choose the Red Sox, I'm just saying. So then now the question is, if you're the Twins, would you rather play the Rays or the Indians? Who would you rather choose? And a best out of 3, I guess they choose the Indians, I don't know. So who knows? So again, so using last year's example, and you could go back and use 2018, 2017, you could go all the way back to 2012 and even back into the 2000s. You could use all sorts of formats and try to guess who would play who for that matter, since again, looking at those articles, obviously teams that missed the playoffs a fair amount in that time span would have been in the playoffs a lot more. And so that means Mariners like streaks, or teams like the White Sox, or whoever, Padres, teams that missed the playoffs every year of the 2010s. With the new format in place, it will be much harder to miss the playoffs for a long period of time. And sure, there's going to be bad teams. I mean, there's going to be teams that win games in the 70s and even the 60s every year. I mean, that's just going to happen, and half of the league is going to miss the playoffs. But one thing that will help with, I think, a lot is tanking. Since now a team that we won 72 games, let's try to spend a lot of money and go for, instead of maybe we can somehow get a wild card. Instead, you think, let's just try to focus on getting into the playoffs. Maybe we're the 6th or 7th seed. And if we win the division, great, but we're just trying to go for the wild card. We're trying to get into the playoffs. And if you can get into that playoff system, again, think about somebody like the Mets, who was red hot last year. They get in, and who knows who would want to play the Mets, who missed the playoffs? There are all sorts of teams. Who would want to play the Indians, right? So you go through that list. And another thing, since again teams I think will have more incentive to win, they think, okay, let's just focus on being decent for now. And maybe you build on that. Instead of blowing it up, maybe you get rid of teams like the Orioles and Tigers and Marlins, teams that are clearly tanking, clearly losing to get better. So again, in the 2020s, if the system is put in place in 2022, I guarantee you every team throughout Major League Baseball will get into the playoffs. And if you struggle to be mediocre, even at best, at worst mediocre, you're struggling to win 80 to 85 games at any point in time for a long period of time, then your organization has a lot of problems and is clearly poorly run. So those are kind of the new facts here. So the question is, am I for it or against it? Me personally, I am for it. And there are people against it for sure. I mean, I read Trevor Bauer and I watched a video of him. I mean, he was very critical of the system and just said it made no sense. Well, someone like Trevor Bauer, more than anything, would have benefited from it being on the Indians last year. And then again, his team, like the Reds, are probably a team this year that would benefit from this extended playoffs. More than anything, a team like the Reds is one of those teams. I mean, you could go around the list of all of Major League Baseball. I mean, you could say, I think the Red Sox right now would benefit from this despite selling off Mookie Betts, or a team like maybe the Blue Jays could sneak into that spot or whatever, or so on. The Angels, they would benefit greatly from this. They absolutely would have. We would have seen Mike Trout in the playoffs at least 3 times a year instead of 3 times total, many times over the last 8 seasons. And look, there's going to be years where you miss the playoffs. You're going to have down years, and I get that. I understand that, but I think making to the playoffs in baseball means you can win the World Series. Since think about that wild card game. And I'm all for this, since this again makes it more unpredictable. You know, if you can get in, I mean, maybe teams that win 82 games technically have a shot to win the World Series. But think about it, right? The 83-win Cardinals in 2006 won a very weak division, and they won the World Series that year since they got hot in the playoffs. Why couldn't you, if they won only 83 games, why couldn't 3 other teams figure out a way to beat them, right? So those factors, I like the unpredictable things. And again, throughout the season, like, you know, I've been doing the show now for 3 or 4 years. I've been, you know, down the stretch, I've been doing episodes where I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at the standings. I'm going to try to guess who's in the World Series, right? Who's going to play who? I know who's going to play who. If everything. Right now, you don't know. I mean, down the stretch, like, let's just say this is 2019. It's like, so no one wants to play the Nationals. No one's going to play the Nationals. Who are the Braves going to pick to play in the playoffs? Who do you think they're going to pick, right? You could do, or you think, who do you think the Yankees are going to pick to play in the playoffs? You could do this on and on and on for weeks at a time. Or even down the stretch, I mean, because you don't know until, let's say the Braves say, oh, we're going to play the Brewers, or then the Yankees say, we're going to play the Red Sox, and then everything is revealed. It takes just a few minutes, and that's the way everything reveals. Those are the postseason matchups. Now, what will the implications be if, say, the 7th seed, the Braves have been shocked by the D-backs, or whatever, right? who would they then go on to play? How would that work? I think, right, just drawing up the bracket, you can't even comprehend of how it would work. My guess is, I think the team with the lowest remaining record. So the question is, does a league do 4-5? I think the team with the lowest remaining record should play. The worst record remaining should play the 1 seed. So then, the D-backs go on to play the Dodgers. And then on the other side, the Nationals, let's just say they beat the Mets, go on to play from the other wild card round, let's just say the Cardinals beat the, now I'm lost here, beat the Brewers, right? Or no, this is complicated. You can't predict the bracket. So, just say it's Dodgers, D-backs, and it's Nationals, Diamondbacks. Let's just say that. So I don't know. Oh no, that's the thing. It's like the NFL playoffs. You really don't know who's playing who, and you don't have another team to really tell you. So again, 3 of those teams advance, 3 of them go home. How does this work? Like on who plays who, right? That's hard to explain. So again, I'm not going to try to explain it now. Since I don't know, I'm trying to explain something that I really don't know anything about and how it's going to work. You really won't see it until it's done. I mean, that's how you learn about brackets, right? So again, I'm for it. Since again, if you're a veteran player who has who has struggled to be in the playoffs, I'm sure you want more opportunities to get that World Series ring. I'm sure you do, right? I'm sure if you're a general manager, we won 84 games. Like, think about teams like the Phillies. They may or may not have made it to the playoffs in each of the last couple of years, right? So again, and yes, looking at those articles, losing teams would have made it to the playoffs, for sure, right? Teams with losing records. I mean, it happens in the NBA all the time, right? You have a losing record and you get in. Well, again, so for the most part, I support them. There's people against it, right? And it's all, and at the end of the day, it's up to the players' union. Which, how could they not agree? How could they not approve it? I don't. If I were them, I would approve it. Since if you have played for the Angels, or you've played on a team like the Diamondbacks, who have been good at times but not good enough, you're all for it. Or you've been on teams like the whoever, you could go all around the league. If I'm the players, I approve it. I pass the deal. Let's get the deal done. Let's play extra playoff baseball, and the league makes more money. Owners make more money since, again, you will be guaranteed extra playoff games, especially if you're anyone. 2, 3, 4, you get a guarantee of 3 playoff games, where if you're the 1 seed, I guess you only get a guaranteed of 2 if you manage to lose a series in 4 games. So again, owners make extra money. Fans go to more games. Now I've heard people debate, the regular season, what is the value of the regular season, right? If almost half of the league makes it to the playoffs. Well, that is true. I think the value of the regular season goes down. But look, I'm a Nationals fan. You know what? As long as the Nationals are decent, then I know they're in the playoffs, right? That's good to know. In a league competitive as baseball or whatever, like, especially now, I get excited when the Nationals make it to the playoffs. Or let's say you're an NBA fan in Washington, like the Wizards or whatever. Or I've lived in Georgia for 6 years, like teams like the Hawks. I watch them a good amount, right? You're a mid-level team in the playoffs, you're not going to get excited about the playoffs. But in baseball, you always get excited about the playoffs. You always get excited about winning a series. It's a big deal. And I think even with that 17, maybe that those 2 extra teams, I think would be a little bit less of a big deal, especially clinching the playoffs, but winning a playoff series. I mean, we know what it's like, and it's interesting. We have not done we don't know how it would work, since obviously it hasn't happened yet. But let's give it a few years. Let's evaluate in 2025 or 2030 and look back at what's going on and see, okay, what has been the result of the last team in versus the 1 seed? How has this worked out? Since, again, I can tell you 2 examples of the wild card games. I think my 2 favorite examples. 2014, the Royals, A's, they were trailing that game. They found a way to come back. Pirates Giants. Madison Bumgarner complete game shutout. Guess what? Pirates are going home. Guess what? The A's are going home. Here's other side of the story. Royals are in the World Series. So are the Giants. The Giants won the World Series. And then the Nationals. Oh, they're down 2 runs against Josh Hader. It's probably over. Well, you're thinking, oh man, it's been a good season, but it's probably over. They find a way to win. They do it again against the Dodgers. The Nationals never trail in every elimination game and won. Guess what? The Nationals are world champions. So that wild card game can be the difference between your season's over that night. It was really over before it all really began. You know, and in that game, experience it all day. You're excited for it, since you know this could be the start of something special. And just like that, it's over. I'm sorry, Brewers fans. I'm sorry, A's fans. I'm sorry, Pirates fans. Giants fans, Nationals fans. You got to see your team win a World Series. That's the difference. Now this series, with it being best out of 3, oh, you lose that game. Oh, we won that game. Yes. Oh, you lost the next 2, or whatever. Oh, darn it, we lost. It's not over. Oh, we won the next 2. So there will be examples like that will happen. So again, it's 2 years away. When I first heard it, I was very excited. I'm all for it. If you went to the ballot box and we had a vote for it, I would vote yes. Let's approve of this thing. Let's get it started. Well, yes, bracketing will be complicated, since you obviously, until the very end of the season, until after the last pitch of the regular season is thrown, you will not know who is playing who in the playoffs. You will not know that. You'll be waiting suspense all summer long. Even in the last week of the season, you will not know. Now, you can try to guess who is playing who, right? You can try to guess. And then, once those series are complete, how will that be explained? What will the rules be like? I think as it's approved, I think we'll get closer and closer. Again, let's try this again. But again, I'd have the 7 seed somehow won. They would play the 1 seed, and then winners between the 2 and 3 seed series, between the other division winners, the winners of that series, I guess they would play each other. 7 seed 1, they'd play 1, or vice versa. So the lowest seed remaining would play the highest seed remaining. And then so on and so forth. So NFL, I think they should install an NFL-like format to their playoffs, which I think they are getting ready to do that. I like competitiveness. I like big playoffs. You know, it's just fun to experience. You think about hockey, underdog teams, 8 seeds. Last team ins have gone on to win Stanley Cups and go to Stanley Cup finals, make deep playoff runs. So it happens. Underdogs are encouraged, right? So again, I'm 100% for this. You know, I may have to put a poll out on Twitter to see how people feel, just a general idea. But, so now the question is, as I get ready to leave, for all you people who are watching this video, feel free to answer. And this is a simple question. Are you for or against playoff expansion in the MLB? Yes or no? And if you want to, you can explain why, but you don't have to. But just say yes or no in the comments. And thank you everybody for listening. You know, this is a really interesting story that I really wanted to talk about ever since it came out. I was glad I got that opportunity. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.